What's up, y'all? It is the Josephine Review Podcast. Welcome back. It is June 2021 and we are celebrating Juneteenth. Yes, it is Juneteenth, the month that is all about us. After all, we are the descendants of the enslaved, the people who built this country, and some of us who were here before slavery. You know, they like to continue the hiding of our history and the absence of knowledge when it comes to the Black community, so that we don't know those things. Like, we were here already, some of us, our family members, and some of us were brought over, but not all of us were. But whether you were here already or you were brought over against your will, this is the month where when we were freed, and it is known as Juneteenth. I also want to say that June is the anniversary of the Josephine Review podcast. Yes, so I started this show last year in June, and I have been fiddling around with the idea for quite a few years of whether or not I wanted to do a podcast. And so I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And especially with the lockdown, with quarantine, I had nothing but time, so I said, why not give it a shot? And I started my podcast online. And then later I ventured over and added YouTube to the list with the podcast. So you're watching me on YouTube right now, but you can also listen to me on the podcast channels that are available, the podcast apps that are available. But anyway, once again, welcome to the Josephine Review Podcast. Okay, as you know, I am your host, Josephine. Yes, that's me. Thank you for joining me today. Okay, this is episode 18, and today's show, as I probably said already, is titled Celebration of Juneteenth. Please understand that the views I express on my podcast are that of my own, and you, my wonderful listeners, you have the right to agree to disagree. If I am telling you a story about a hot button topic regarding someone's life or regarding politics, know that the information is alleged. The information is alleged, and I don't break stories. I'm not into breaking stories. I'm into talking about what's already out there. So if it's already out there, that means it's open for public opinion, and that's where I come in with my wonderful review. Yes, okay. If you miss any live shows, the Josephine Review Podcast is on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and social media platforms, IG and Twitter. Or you can just go right to the website, which is the easiest way to get me. You go right to my website, the Josephine Review Podcast, to see an instant replay of the show's latest topics, okay? Feel free to leave your questions and comments. I just might respond, okay? Please like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, tell everyone about it, follow. This is a great show. You can learn stuff, I give you some history, I give you some motivation and inspiration, I give you a little laugh and a kiki here and there, okay? So tell everyone about us, about me, the Josephine Review Podcast, okay? Okay, now let's talk about it. Let's get into the show's topics. I'm going to talk about Candace and her situation, or her views on colorism, her stance rather. And Candace is from Real Housewives of Potomac. I am going to talk about Colby Daniel, the 6-year-old who was shot by an Asian man in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I am going to talk about the rights, the bills that have been signed, things that have been put into legislation. Are they helping us, or are they only helping others, you know? And I also want to talk about reparations. California has been, for the past few years, having a stance on reparations. So I want to discuss that. All of those topics are perfect to talk about in celebration of Juneteenth. So here we go. Okay, so Candace on Real Housewives of Potomac. That's our first topic we're going to talk about today. Candace, what is her last name? I forgot her last name. So I'm going to be clear on who I'm speaking of in case you guys are not familiar, which I'm sure you are. Let me see. I'm just looking up. Candace Dillard. Yes, Candace Dillard. Okay, so Candace Dillard made some statements about colorism in her cast and colorism, period, being used against her as far as the way she's treated by the public, you know, viewers of the show, and just how she's treated in general with the statements that she makes and or with her actions on the show. So Candace was saying that she gets so much flack from the things, her point of view and her reactions on the show. And let's be clear, a lot of the things that she does are reactions. She is reacting to something, and it's the same thing with Kenya on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Kenya is most often reacting to something that has been done to her. And then just, you know, like Candace, they get judged by the viewers harshly on their choice of reaction when you can't really dictate to someone how they are supposed to react to whatever you said to them and however you made them feel. Okay, so Candace has had a few run-ins on the show. I don't know if I should call it run-ins because she had a fight on the show. She was involved in the fight, but she did not initiate the fight on the show, okay? But every time Candace has something to say, as snarky as it may be, whether it's on the show or it's on Twitter, she gets attacked. And it's like, why is it that she gets attacked whenever she responds or reacts? It's as though she can't say or do anything when someone wrongs her, regardless of how she feels during that, whatever the incident is. But in the same token, you have Ashley, okay? Ashley is her cast member on the show. And from the very beginning, even before Candace joined the show, Ashley, everybody knows she is the worst castmate as far as having negative interactions with everyone and having negative things to say. She's very rarely positive. She's always in everyone's business. She snoops around. She pulls out things that have nothing to do with her and tries to blast you, to put you on, you know, on Front Street about whatever it is that is going on in your life. And it's not right. It's not okay. Robin wanted to smack Ashley upside her head. The Grand Dame wanted to smack Ashley upside her head at one time. Giselle, they all have, you know, but Ashley gets a pass. And then when she got pregnant with her first child, all of a sudden, even after she had the baby, they went easy on Ashley. Oh, well, Ashley just had a baby. But I guarantee you, if it were Candace who were pregnant and then had a baby, it would not have been the same given to her, you know, that lacks of accountability, shall I say. So Candace is saying It's because she's dark skinned. That's why she gets more flack. And if you look at, well, I don't really want to compare it to situations on Real Housewives of Atlanta, because most of the women on Atlanta are of a darker hue, you know. But on Potomac, Candace is the darkest, and she's saying that the public and just in general, it is a problem with colorism in our community, where a lighter skinned person can do the same thing a darker skinned person does or worse, and they get a pat on the back and excused and coddled, whereas the darker skinned person is ridiculed and demeaned, you know, about it. And is it truly a case of colorism in Candace's case? I would say yes, there is some of that going on. There is some of that going on. And truly, when you look at what Candace has done and said, yes, she goes off the deep end on Twitter. I have seen some of her Twitter comments, and they're not nice. It's you know, but like I said in the beginning, you can't tell people how to react to whatever you say to them. They may react super harsh. They may go off the deep end with it, but it's their right to react however they choose to, you know. Just like it's your right to come to them with the craziness that you approach them with, you know. So you can't tell someone how to react. And when I look at reactions on Real Housewives of Potomac alone, Ashley gets a pass. They forgive her easily. They still befriend her. They still invite her over, and she is excused for her behavior. They never look at that Ashley initiates things, and a lot of times Ashley will initiate something and then sit on the side and watch the two people go at it, when she's the one that actually started it. Like the fight between Monique and Candace, Ashley struck that match and then went to the bathroom. She waited until the fight was over and then came back out and was like, oh, there was a fight, oh, I didn't know. Yes, she knew exactly what was going on, but that's her MO, and she knows that she's going to get away with it. She knows that no one is going to hold her accountable, and if she is held accountable, it's for a very short moment in time. Okay? So in the case of Candace and Ashley, or Candace and Real Housewives of Potomac and the viewers, I would say yes, it's definitely colorism. It's definitely something that needs to be resolved in our community. It's awful. It does exist. I've experienced it. I still experience it to this day. You know, they could have a person, for example, standing next to me that is of a lighter complexion or of a different race. And if I say I went to Cartagena, Colombia, I will get called a liar, or they will try to question me, grill me, interrogate me to see if they can find a lie in my story. But if the person next to me that's lighter or of a different race says they went to Cartagena, Colombia, there's no question about whether they went or not, or whether they can afford it. People automatically will look at me and say, I can't afford to do something, or I can't, you know, I'm not intelligent enough, or what have you, you fill in the blanks. And when I look at the situation, I'm like, well, this person is lying, or this person hasn't done any of those things, and I really have done all those things. But what does it all boil down to? The difference is my skin tone. My skin tone. And so colorism is a big deal. And coming from Louisiana, where there is a large population of Creole, there's a large population of Asians, so there are a lot of Black and Asian people, there are a lot of Hispanics, and then there's a Caucasian community. And darker skinned people in Louisiana usually fall very, very low at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to treatment in certain situations. And people automatically assume when you're darker skinned, that you're from the lower area, you have the lower income, you have the lower or the less experience in things, and it's really not so. You know, and it's, when I tell you it's terrible in Louisiana, colorism and elitism, it is horrible. And to grow up in that, it really does create some level of trauma. You know, it creates a level of emotional trauma growing up in that type of situation, you know. So, but anyway, with Candace, I agree with Candace on that. And I've actually agreed with Candace on a lot of things, you know, even the situation where Ashley went into she was at Candace's home for the dinner or whatever was going on. And Candace asked Ashley to leave. Ashley refused to leave her home. Whether her mom bought the home or was paying the mortgage or whatever it was still Candace's home. Ashley, if she told you to leave, leave. Ashley refused to leave. And then when she did finally leave, Giselle, I believe the producers prodded her to go back out, convinced Ashley to come on back in. Ashley comes back in to a home she was told to get out of. Now, where I'm from, if someone tells you to get out of their home and it's some type of negative situation occurring between you and that person, you may get the hell smacked out of you if you don't get out. So the fact that Candace picked up a little butter knife and flicked it at her, she's lucky that that's all that happened. You know, and I'm not saying it's okay to fight or to use weapons or to throw things at people or what have you. But if somebody tells you to get out of their home and you refuse to leave, and then you sit down and you're indignant about it, you get whatever is coming to you. So I stand behind Candace on all of it. Okay, so yes, there's colorism there going on Potomac. So with that thought, we're going to move on to something more serious, which is the incident in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Okay, so there was this situation in Ypsilanti, Michigan with a black 7-year-old little boy named Kobe Daniel. Okay, Kobe was outside with his friends playing in the neighborhood where he lives, and they were riding their bikes and, you know, doing what kids do. Sometimes you want to take a break when you're a kid. I remember being a kid and riding my bike through the neighborhoods, and you just get off your bike. You drop it wherever it is, as long as it's not in the middle of the street. You just drop your bike wherever it is so you can sit down or do some other playing. And I'm sure that's what the kids did in this instance. So he leaves his bike where it happened to be leaning on the lawn of this Asian guy. Okay, so eventually Kobe goes to get his bike. He goes to pick his bike up off of the lawn, and the Asian man comes outside to a 6-year-old. I mean, he is a baby. He is a baby. And this situation just proves and reiterates the fact that our black children are not regarded as children and as babies, no matter how old they are. They're always looked at as strong and grown, and, you know, we don't feel pain and all this stuff. But he is a baby. He is a child. And for an adult man to come outside and aggressively approach a child instead of finding the parent, and the child lives in the neighborhood, so you know where this child possibly lives, or it will be easy for you to find out where he lives. Instead, you go and approach the child. Okay, so the Asian man named Ryan Lee Wynn, he approaches the child and threatened him. So he threatened this baby with he threatened to strike him with a sledgehammer. A sledgehammer. So what has to be going on inside your person, inside your mental space, that would make you comfortable with approaching and threatening a child with a sledgehammer or any type of weapon, but a sledgehammer if he didn't get his bike off of his lawn? So of course Kobe was afraid, and he picked up his bike. And as he was trying to get on his bike to ride off, just that fast, the Asian man, Ryan Lee Wynn, went in his house, picked up a shotgun, aimed it through the window, and shot this baby in his arm. I mean, the bullet happened to penetrate his arm, but he was trying to shoot him wherever. How is that okay? Something is mentally wrong with a person that thinks it's okay to attack a child. And then there have been reports that this man has had negative experiences with several residents in the area. So he is a nuisance. He is a problem. He is a problem. And so he shot this child, and all of it was caught on the Ring camera system, So I'm watching a news report on the story. I look it up and I'm like, oh, okay, here's a story about it. Let me see what exactly is going on. So I look to see, what all is going on. And what I see is a story by a Fox News reporter named Jessica Dupnack, or however you pronounce it. And she is covering the story, and she interviews the father, Kobe Daniels' father, and then Kobe. And when she gets to Kobe, she showed her embedded ignorance, whether it was intentional or unintentional. She showed her embedded ignorance by asking a 6-year-old child if the gunshot hurt. Who would ask someone that? Why would you not just assume and have it be understood that anyone being shot, it hurts? An adult being shot would hurt. So quite naturally, a 6-year-old who has not experienced much pain, if any at all in life, it hurt them. But that just goes back to the idea that we don't feel pain, which is a mindset that comes from slavery. That comes from when black people were treated as cattle, as property, when black people were enslaved and had no rights and were not seen as human. We can't possibly feel pain if we're not human. But even animals feel pain. So even if you thought we were animals, we still felt pain. So to look at a 6-year-old child and ask them, did it hurt? I felt, and I still feel, she should be suspended. She should be suspended, reprimanded, or what have you, for even thinking to ask such a dumb question. And even the child, Kobe, looked up at her like what? Girl, what you mean? Yeah, it hurt. Yes, it hurts. Duh. Anytime a child is looking at you, answering you like the dummy you are, and no disrespect, Jessica, but all disrespect, because you showed an example of lily white America. The America that thinks we are not as human as you. And if it would have been my child, first of all, no one would have been interviewing my child. They would have been interviewing me and my husband. And if it would have been a situation like that happening, where Ryan Lee Wynn pulled out a gun and shot a child that I know, that came out of my body, there wouldn't be an argument of why he got bail for $10,000. He got a $10,000 bail after shooting someone, a baby. After first threatening him with a sledgehammer and then shooting him. That is premeditated murder, attempted murder. That's what that is. But as a judge, you decide to pat him on the hand and release him on a $10,000 bail. That's almost nothing. That is nothing. He gets to come home after he's done something unthinkable to a child that can barely help themselves. He wouldn't have even made it to the jail in other circumstances. Let's be real about that. He wouldn't have made it to jail to have a bail, shooting someone else's child. Thinking about this situation, an Asian man, it could have been anybody that shot the gun. But in this situation, we know who the body is. It's an Asian man, a black little child, and then we have a white news reporter. And when I look at this situation, I wonder, where is that law to protect black Americans? That is the question that popped up in my head to President Biden. Where is the law to protect black Americans? Because as we know, Asian rights mean more to this country than the countless lives of black people. After President Biden took the time, quickly, expeditiously, he made the time to sign into Congress an Asian American hate crime bill to protect all Asians, all Asian Americans or whatever, after one targeted incident in Canton, Georgia earlier this year. So after that one incident, it took him 2 weeks of conversing between the Democrats and the Republicans to decide whether or not this bill should be put into play. Meanwhile, we have countless black people, children, babies, adults, elderly, being manhandled, beat, battered, murdered by the hands of others. And I can't just say by the hands of white people, because it's not just white people. It's whites, it's Asians, and whatever else you want to fill in that box. But where is our hate crime bill? We didn't get a black American hate crime bill, did we? After George Floyd, yes, Biden wasn't in office, but when he got in office, that was before the Canton, Georgia incident with the white guy killing those Asian women in the massage parlors. That was before that. So he had time to sign in a bill and have a discussion with the Democrats and the Republicans about black hate crimes. Nothing occurred. And in the words of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York, he said about this bill, the vote today on the anti-Asian hate crimes bill is proof that when the Senate is given the opportunity to work, the Senate can work to solve important issues. Oh, okay. So we're not important? That's what I get from that. Black people are not important? Because where was the Senate coming together to fight about Black lives mattering to this country? Because clearly Black lives mattered when you needed us to till the rice. Black lives mattered when you needed us to pick the cotton. Black lives mattered when you needed us to cook your food and clean your homes and breastfeed your children and raise your children. Black Lives Matter when you needed to snatch us from our families? A lot of us are related and we don't even know we're related because of slavery. Because we were snatched apart from our kin, our parents, when we were born. So that we can come to the Caucasian homes and raise their children and breastfeed their children. And then you give us slop to eat. Our Black Lives mattered then. So why don't our Black Lives matter just as much now? You know, I just couldn't even believe Chuck Schumer. I couldn't believe his statement, you know, they work together to solve important issues. Okay, what's the important issues? What all is on the table? Because how did the Asian hate crime bill, from one incident that everybody knew about, how did that get 2 weeks time, you know, resolve, and we still don't have any? Why have they not been given the opportunity to work amidst all of the turmoil and death impeding the Black community due to obvious hate crimes? Because this hate crimes is happening to us every single day. All it took was a white man to go shoot up some massage parlors, okay, for this swift action to take effect for an Asian American crime bill. And I don't say that to downplay what happened to those Asian Americans or Asian people who were killed in that situation or harmed in that situation, because they did not deserve that. No one deserves to be harmed or have anything pushed upon them, you know, that's not rightfully due to them, you know. And I say that meaning some people have butt whoopings that are rightfully due to them, but in that situation, that was not that type of situation, you know. But how many Black lives have been lost since the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Britons, and the Dutch came with their ships? Okay, how many Black lives have been lost and accounted for? And then we have our Vice President, Kamala Harris, leading the charge in this, you know, specifically citing the increase in crimes against Asians. But when she was on her campaign trail, she was talking about her Blackness. Oh, I'm a Black woman. I'm a Black woman. I consider myself a Black woman. Okay. And we don't have a hate crime bill yet. We should have had a hate crime bill back in the 60s and 70s after, you know, they decided to stop chasing us with dogs and hosing us down in the streets. We should have had a hate crime bill after the beating of Rodney King. We should have had a hate crime bill before Michael Brown. Like, before Trayvon Martin. It's ridiculous. And the Vice President, Kamala Harris, led the charge in this bill, specifically citing the increase in crimes against Asians. Why? Because she is our Asian American Vice President. And why do I say that? I say that because whenever I'm reading the NPR or any news source, CNN, I see them listing Madam Vice President as Asian American Vice President. You can look that up yourself. They don't say our Black Vice President, they say Asian American. And yes, she's multiracial, but they don't list her multiple races. They don't. And it's purposely done to send a specific message and to cater to a specific group of people. But her entire campaign, she was saying, I'm black, I'm black, I'm blackly black, I'm black, I'm blackly black, I'm black, 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 black. That's what she was saying. But that's not what I see. Why didn't she take the time to lead the charge with a hate crime bill for black people? You know, we need a hate crime bill too. Why is the Asian American community more important? Well, I got an answer to that. It all boils down to economics and capitalism. So yes, we know that Biden recently commemorated the many black lives who were killed by a white mob of mentally deficient animals when they burned down Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yes, he did do a commemoration or what have you to recognize that horrible incident. And we've had many incidents in our history like that where we built our own and it was destroyed, taken from us, whether it was based on a lie or what have you, you know. But is that enough? Is that all we get, President Biden? That's all we get is a commemoration? I think we deserve more, especially after using black people to rally votes. We deserve more. In 1988, Ronald Reagan signed legislation to give $20,000 to every surviving Japanese American incarcerated during World War II. In 2015, the Department of Veteran Affairs paid $24 billion in disability compensation to 1.3 million Vietnam War veterans after they dropped poisonous gases in their communities. So the Asians got $24 billion. Okay? Germany gave $662 million divided between approximately 240,000 Holocaust survivors. So all of that tells me it's definitely possible to give black Americans what we are owed. We are owed a crime bill to protect us and our children, so that our children could go outside and play and ride their bikes and play basketball and swim in the pool and walk their dogs and whatever else they want to do without being shot or accosted. Where is the thing to back us up in government? There's nothing. Why aren't we given the same respect that Holocaust survivors are given? You can't dare say anything about a Holocaust survivor or about a Jewish person, period. You can't dare. But what is different about what they endured in comparison to what we endured? I don't really see that big of a difference. And we have way more surviving ancestors than they have. But they get an unspoken respect that we don't get. Even our children are disrespected. And I don't understand why that's okay. But when you look at economics and capitalism, you kind of find some sense in it. Not good sense, but just some sense. The Asian American community and Asians in general are extremely important to the American economy. Okay? Whenever you pick up something, anything you pick up, it could be a bottle of hand sanitizer, you pick up your phone, you pick up a picture frame in your house, a battery, plastic, anything. And it's going to say made in China, made in Taiwan, made in Tokyo, made in Korea. And understanding that will help you to understand why there's an Asian American hate crime bill and not a black one. Because you don't pick up anything that says made in Africa, even though we know Africa's resources are being depleted by America. Africa's resources are being depleted by Europe. But you don't ever see anything says made in Africa. Now that there's more organic products, you may see something saying made in Africa. But it's very rare. So to keep the economy going, and the American government has to pat hands with the Asian society. They have to protect them, to protect whatever they have going on when it comes to capitalism in this country. So that's why they're protecting them, and that's why they had an immediate hate crime bill, and we still have nothing. We still have nothing but lost lives. And it's not all about money, but it's majorly about money. But it's also about the principle when it comes to respecting the black community. Here we have Juneteenth, and we celebrate Juneteenth because that's when the American government decided, after industrialism took over, capitalism, okay? After industrialism took over, they didn't need the manpower in the fields anymore. So that's why we were let go. A lot of people like to think, oh, it had to do with Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln wasn't thinking about setting the enslaved free for his benefit. He was letting them free because now they had machines to do the work faster in double the time. And he wanted the South to make the money the North was making. That's what that was about. But then you had places like Texas who were told 2 years later that they were free because they wanted to make sure that they got that extra work out of them before they let them go. The white people wanted to get as much work as they can out of the enslaved before they let them go. And what our country has endured, if you ever have a chance to just go and listen to some recorded accounts of enslaved people, telling their story, telling what they witnessed. I have a book called Barracoon. If you read Barracoon by Zora Neale Hurston, it is an account of one of the last enslaved people. And these people talk about seeing our ancestors strapped to a tree with our clothes pulled down and being whipped, and then having coals thrown on us, hot coal thrown on us. Women strapped to a tree, beat by men, raped by white men. Why aren't we given the same regard as Holocaust victims? We deserve the same. Why aren't we given the same respect as the Asian Americans? We deserve the same. And that's all I'm going to say about that, okay? So I hope that there's justice for Kobe Daniels. So our next topic, we're going to move on to our next topic about California's stance on reparations, okay? Governor Gavin Newsom is leading the charge in the historic fight for reparations for descendants of enslaved. Okay, there is a task force committee of 9 members appointed by Governor Newsom who are researching and developing a proposal for Black Americans to address the harms of slavery and systemic racism. The task force consists of descendants of the enslaved who are prominent lawyers, politicians, activists, and educators. Okay, so this fight about reparations in California, Governor Newsom wants to give reparations to descendants, okay? But there's a lot of red tape being thrown in the mix to delay or avoid that from coming to fruition. And one of the things they're fighting about is that there wasn't really slavery in California. But what does that have to do with reparations being given to descendants? Because if there are descendants in California, it has nothing to do with slavery actually being in effect at one point in California. Because many people who were in the South and were let go and freed with nothing and nowhere to go and nothing to do went to California, went to the North. So they do have people there who deserve reparations. I personally have a lot of family members who left Louisiana and went to California. Are they not descendants of the enslaved? Slavery did not have to occur in California for reparations to be given there if the people are there. And I don't understand why there's this big fight about giving us reparations when they've given all these other people their just due. The Asians get their just due. Japanese Americans, Vietnamese, Chinese, they get their just due. Where is ours? They don't want us to know who we are. They don't want us to know where we come from. Oh, you came from Africa. Well, everybody didn't come from Africa. What about those of us who were already here? Because if you want to say we came from Africa, everybody came from Africa. Truth be told, everybody came from Africa. So if you want to call me African, then you're African too. But where does my bloodline really lie? A lot of people don't know. I know because half of my family didn't originate here. I am a first generation immigrant. So I happen to have a better knowledge of some of my history, my family's history, my ancestors. But a lot of people are not able to reach back that far with their ancestry. Some people can't go past their great-grandparent. I've been fortunate actually on my maternal side of my family also. My grandmother's brother did a search on the roots of my family on that side and found a wealth of information. So thankfully, I'm able to look back and see where I come from. There are a lot of people that are not afforded that ability. Even with all the vast resources that we have, they don't make it that easy for people to find this stuff out. I shouldn't have to go hunting and searching for where I come from. You know, the Italians know where they came from. The Asians know where they came from. But we're just black. I get it and I understand why it's that way. But there comes a point in time where that must change. And Governor Newsom is on the right track, and reparations is not just about money. It's about the principle. We were promised something and we never got it. And I'm going to quote an account of a slave, loosely quote. There was a former enslaved person, that said, when we were let go, we had no money, no home, no clothes, no food, no nothing. We didn't know anybody, and we didn't know where to go because all they knew was their master. And the interviewer said, well, why didn't you know what to do or where to go? And he said, well, we were looked at as property no different than the cattle. He said, when you let a cow go, the cow just takes off running. They don't know where they're running to. They're just grazing and running. He said, we were no different. Isn't that just despicable? But yet we have to fight for a hate crime bill. We have to fight for our history to be taught in schools. We have to fight for reparations that's due to us. We have to fight for respect. We have to fight to be shown or understood as being equal. We have to fight for everything. For everything. And it's really sad, you know. It's like this world is changing so fast, and yet it's not. And yet it's not. But anyway, I'm going to leave that topic where it is because I can go on and on about it. I'm going to move on to my favorite part of the show. Did you know?
Tell you the truth, when I think of it today, I don't know how I'm living.
I remember that just as well look like to me, I can't.
Been slaves all our lives. Mother was a slave, sister was a slave, father was a slave.
They know nothing about reading right. All that I know, they teach you to mind your master and your missus. Mom and them didn't know where to go. You see, after freedom go, just like you turned something out, you know. They didn't know where to go.
They are haunting voices from the past. Not actors reading a script or scholars reading a text, but the actual voices of men and women, Americans, who were born in slavery.
My name is Fountain Hughes. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. My grandfather belonged to Thomas Jefferson. My grandfather was 115 years old when he died. And now I am 101 years old. Colored people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. People slept on the floor. Had it here, had it there. Just like a lot of wild people. We didn't know nothing. Didn't like look at no book.
Harriet Smith, remembering what she saw as a small girl during the final days of the Civil War.
We stood on that picket fence all day long, seeing them soldiers going back to San Antonio and different places. Colored soldiers in droves.
You remember slavery days very well?
Of course, I remember all our white folks, and all the names of them, all the children. Call every one of the children's names.
Who did you belong to?
Jim Button, the baby boy.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench and put you up on the bench and bid on you the same as you're bidding on cattle, you know.
Here is 91-year-old Texan Laura Smalley talking in the 1940s about the outcome of a tussle between two women, one black, one white, one slave, one mistress. The mistress tried to slap the slave, but the black woman pushed her into a chair. Laura Smalley was a girl at the time, but she remembers vividly what happened to the black woman when the master came home.
Well, they taken that old woman, poor old woman, carried in the peach orchard and whipped her. And, just tied her hand this way, around the peach orchard tree. I remember that just as well, looked like to me, I can, and round the tree and whipped her. And, well, she couldn't do nothing but just kick her feet, just kick her feet. But it just had her clothes off down to her waist, Just didn't have her plumb naked, but they had her clothes down to her waist. And every now and then they'd whip her, and then snuff the pipe out on her, snuff pipe out on her. The embers in the pipe, where you ever see the pipe smoking.
Blow them out on her? Mm-hmm. Good Lord, have mercy.
The plantation on which Smalley was a slave sounds brutal. She recalls scrambling with other children for food from a huge wooden tray, like a hog trough.
All of them, would get around that tray with spoons and eat, something like mush or soup or something like that. And all them children get around there and just eat.
Fountain Hughes tells his interviewer about the relentless round of work for him on a Virginia plantation.
Night never comes out. You had nothing to do. Time to cut tobacco. If they want you to cut all night long out in the field, you cut. And if they want you to hang all night long, you hang tobacco. It didn't matter about your tired, being tired, you're afraid to say you're tired.
And that is today's Did You Know? Okay? Now, before I bid you adieu, here's a message that hopefully inspires you. Motivation and inspiration of the day. Don't stop until you're proud. Don't stop until you're proud. Now, let me quickly explain that. So often in life, we are always trying to make someone else proud. Oh, I have to make my mom proud, my dad proud. I have to make my Grammy proud, my grandfather proud. I want to make my teacher proud. But not so often do we try to make ourselves proud. And I think if we focus more on making ourselves proud, in return, all of those other people will then be proud of us. So focus on doing what makes your heart happy, because what makes your heart happy makes your heart healthy, because there's less stress and more laughter, more fun, more smiles. So do what makes yourself happy. Do whatever you have to do to make yourself feel fulfilled. Because a lot of people, sometimes they think they're bored or they're depressed when they're just unfulfilled. And sometimes you're unfulfilled because you're not doing something that makes you proud of you. You're doing something that makes someone else proud. You're doing it for them. Oh, I'm doing this for my dad. I'm doing this for my dad. And so you just wasted your time doing something that makes your dad happy that you absolutely despise doing. Like you don't even like cooking, but you become a 5-star chef for your dad. You don't even like computer technology, but you become a coder because that's what your mom wanted you to do. You don't even like anything dealing with the medical industry. Seeing blood makes you hurl. But you became a doctor or a veterinarian or something in that field because your grandmother wanted a doctor in the family. You hate law and sitting in courtrooms and researching cases. But you became a lawyer because your grandfather wanted you to do that. And you just wasted a whole bunch of time doing something that doesn't make you happy and doesn't make you proud. But if you actually take the time and invest in yourself Invest in a thing that makes you happy and makes you feel whole. Whatever it is that they at first wanted you to do, they're going to be more happy that you did the thing that you love to do, because they're going to see a joy in you, right? So, our motivation and inspiration of today: don't stop until you're proud of you. Okay? Until the next episode, please leave your questions and comments. Let me know if you have any topics you want me to speak on. Happy Juneteenth. Don't forget to tell everyone about it. Don't forget to celebrate our freedom. And see you next time. May God bless you and his way impress you. Later.